Hexagram number 33. Retreat. Stop looking at the situation to figure it out. The situation indicated by this hexagram is that our ego, in the form of vanity, desire, or fear, is aroused either through observing the situation or another's behavior. We may also be disconcerted by our weakness. It is important to disengage and cease going over the situation in our mind. This, in Ching terms, is to retreat. It is important to retreat before we become further involved. If we retreat in time, we suffer no remorse because we will not yet have had an adverse effect on the situation. Now we may retreat with little effort, but once desire or fear is aroused, we become entangled. Pride may also be aroused, as when we throw ourselves away to someone who is not ready to hear what we have to say. Once aroused, the negative effects of wounded pride are difficult to disperse. Pride makes it difficult to return to the path of humility and acceptance. If we allow our ego to dominate the situation, we invariably go on to act even more inappropriately. Involving ourselves in this way causes reversals, humiliation, and remorse that can be avoided if we retreat at the earliest stage of becoming involved. The correct time to retreat comes when we begin to lose our inner equilibrium and sense and serenity. When we begin to feel enthusiasm, desire, or ambition, or when others are no longer receptive, or when their delicacy of feelings wanes. Likewise, we retreat when we begin to be attacked by doubt and negation, or when our actions no longer yield progress. If we have enough humility, we will be able to observe these times and withdraw, not in disappointment, but in the realization that times of influence are always brief. We need to attune ourselves to the wave-like manner in which people first become receptive and then turn away. We should not hesitate to disengage the instant their receptivity falters. In retreating, we cling to simplicity, sincerity, and serenity, and to the power of truth to correct the situation. Thus we retain our inner independence, preserve the power of our personality, and are able to go on our way without loss of self. Disengaging is also necessary when our ego awakens with enthusiasm either on perceiving an improvement in the situation or on perceiving new opportunities to influence. In its sudden interest, the ego attempts to seize the moment of progress and push it still further in order to dominate what otherwise would be a spontaneous and creative moment. If we remain aware that our ego is always waiting to interject itself, we will be able to keep it in checked. When our ego does seize power in this manner, the other person's ego arises to defend itself. The person who succeeds in controlling his ego finds that the creative moments that allow him to have an influence continuously open up to him. In all situations of retreat, we should prevent our ego from looking at the problem. Such looking causes us to feel a need to straighten the matter out. So long as we strive, the situation will remain obdurate, energized by our involvement. By retreating, the obdurate elements become de-energized. Then new opportunities for influence become possible. Even though misunderstanding momentarily prevails, we must not abandon our position by saying to ourselves, maybe I'm wrong and they're right. This is to abandon the field to the enemy. We need only maintain a dignified reserve that makes it difficult for other people's ego to advance and claim victory. Changing line number 1. At the tail in retreat, we allow our ego to keep examining the issue. We may be considering a compromise with the evil element, or we may remain involved through desire, fear, anger, impatience, or anxiety. We must disengage and no longer focus on the situation. Changing line number 2. He holds fast with yellow oxide. Our inferiors want and ultimately have a right to justice. Justice, however, may not be procured simply because we want it or because our ego demands it. Justice may be procured only through the firm leadership of our superior self. Through keeping aware of our ego, persevering, and keeping disengaged, we win the help of the higher power. Changing line number 3. A halted retreat is nerve-wracking. Our inferiors, composed of both good and evil elements, remain engaged with the problem. It is necessary to retreat as best we can, even though they argue on and on. This effort to do what is right gives us strength because the good elements such as willpower, dedication, devotion, and sincerity, here referred to as our servants, rally to fight off evil elements such as doubt, anxiety, fear, and vanity. Changing line number 4. Voluntary retreat brings downfall to the inferior man. In disengaging from conflict, we preserve our personality from humiliation and the correct defense against other people's envy, anger, or hatred. In abandoning the struggle, their egos lose power. When we compete with other people's egos, we only sharpen their weaponry and harden their resoluteness to continue. When we disengage, their resoluteness gives way. Changing line number 5. Friendly retreat. On persevering the need for retreat, it is necessary to be determined. Friendly retreat. On perceiving the need for retreat, it is necessary to be determined. Otherwise, we will slip back into striving. We must retreat in friendliness, but also with absolute firmness. The other person may try to engage us further, but we must not allow ourselves to be tempted. Yielding to ambition or impatience now will become the source of weakness later on. In the King of the Heap game, we may accede to the subtle flattery put forth by one who, in observing formal courtesy, invites us to explain our views, although he cares nothing about what we say. Once we have opened ourselves up to him, he suddenly attacks. He should retreat immediately from further discussion and refuse to participate in this game. We should retreat immediately from further discussion and refuse to participate in this game. While we may without impunity give expression to our views, we should never defend them or rely on the bravado of logic or wit. Through participation in such games, we throw ourselves away and jeopardize our inner independence, along with the power for good that such independence confers. In all discussions, we should remember our responsibility to the sage who we serve. We have a duty to respond sincerely only to sincerity. We should avoid prompting our point of view. The truth needs neither promotion nor defense. It is capable of standing on its own merits and of enduring all assaults of false dragon. Forgive me, the truth, I'm going to read this last sentence. The truth needs neither promotion nor defense. It is capable of standing on its own merits and of enduring all assaults of the false dragon. There is hardly anything so potentially deceptive as formal courtesy or charm. Since much of the world conducts itself on this basis, we should not blame those who attempt to engage us for the sake of being polite. Also, we should not blame ourselves if we occasionally get caught up in social games. Such games only be eradicated through time, insight, and self-development. Changing line number 6. Cheerful retreat. In disengaging, we are free to go on our way, no longer in the grip of negative elements. This completes hexagram number 33.